You weren't rejected because you weren't good enough. You were rejected because you were too easy to get. This is a harsh truth no one dares to say out loud. You were the one who texted first, the one who showed up, stayed up, waited patiently. You gave endlessly as if love was a debt you owed. You believed, if I am sincere enough, they'll see it. If I give without games, they'll choose me. But they didn't. They disappeared. Or worse, they only came back when they needed something. And then you started questioning yourself. What did I do wrong? Is being kind a flaw? No, you weren't wrong. You were just playing a game you didn't know had rules. And in this game, the one who wears their heart on their sleeve first often bleeds alone. But pause and ask yourself, if they left, but your soul still aches, what exactly are they still holding hostage in a world where emotions are strategy? Showing all your cards too early isn't brave. It's dangerous. It's not vulnerability. It's self-betrayal. This video isn't for men who want to beg for love, and it's not for those looking for fake tactics or charm masks. This is something deeper, a blueprint for awakening, a dismantling of everything you've been taught about attraction power and self-worth, so you can finally return to the still unshakable center of who you are. Through the lens of Machiavelli, will expose the truths that self-help books won't touch, that society avoids, that morality sugarcoats. Because the real truth is this power isn't found in being loved. It's found in no longer needing to be loved to feel valuable. If you've ever been the one who gave more, who loved deeper, who stayed longer than you should have, then this isn't just another video. It's the mirror you've spent years avoiding. The wake-up call your soul has been whispering for a long time. Because in a world that feeds on mystery, the open-hearted become forgotten. There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream. It doesn't leave bruises. It doesn't make headlines. But it lives quietly just beneath the surface. It's the kind of pain you carry when you've done everything right and still weren't chosen. When you gave your time, your effort, your loyalty, your full open heart, and it still wasn't enough, not even close. You weren't angry at first. You were confused. So you made excuses for them and for yourself. Maybe I came on too strong. Maybe they're just not ready. Maybe if I just give it more time. But what you really meant was, maybe they'll finally see me. But they didn't. They saw your kindness as weakness, your availability as desperation, your attention as something to take, not something to earn. And the worst part, you started to believe them. So you began shrinking yourself. You taught your heart to whisper instead of roar. You dimmed the parts of you that once lit up like fire, not because it felt right, but because it felt like survival. Let me ask you something. If someone looked directly at your soul and still turned away, what does that do to a man? This is the silent agony. No one talks about the ache of being emotionally naked in front of someone only to realize they never even looked at you. Not really. They saw your effort, but not your essence. They saw someone easy to have, but not someone hard to forget. And deep down, that realization, it cuts deeper than any breakup ever could, because it makes you question your worth. Not just in love, but in life. You start to wonder if love is even real, or just a transaction dressed in sweet language and polite indifference. But here's the truth most people will never admit. You weren't rejected because you loved too much. You were rejected because you made it too easy for someone who hadn't earned any of it. And now, every time you meet someone new, There's a hesitation, a wall, a quiet voice that whispers, if they see the real me, they'll leave too. So you become guarded colder, not because you want to, but because being seen started to feel like being wounded. You're not broken. You're not too emotional. You're not too much. You're just exhausted. Exhausted from handing your heart to people who never planned to hold it. And that pain, that exhaustion, it's not the end. It's the cocoon, the moment before transformation. Because buried beneath that ache is something sacred, something powerful. It's the moment you stop chasing their validation and start reclaiming your own value. But to do that, you have to understand what's really happening beneath the surface, because this isn't random. This isn't just bad luck. There's a mechanism, a deeper pattern, a design hiding in plain sight. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it again. You've probably asked yourself 100 times, why do I always end up in the same place? You give your best, you show up fully, you're loyal, present, honest, and somehow it's never what they want. But what if I told you it's not your fault? It's not because you're too much, or too soft, or too deep. It's not a character flaw, it's programming conditioning. And deeper than that, it's biology, it's culture, it's how the system was wired long before you learned how to love. We live in a world that unconsciously teaches people to value what's scarce and ignore what's always available. It starts early. As children, we chase the parent who gives us less, not because they love us more, but because their love feels like a prize we haven't earned. And that becomes our blueprint. So in adulthood, we confuse tension with passion distance, with value inconsistency, with intimacy. Pause and ask yourself, have you ever craved someone more the moment they started pulling away? That wasn't love. That was conditioning. You meet someone, you show up real, consistent, clear, but they don't know how to receive it. Because society, especially modern dating culture, has rewired people to chase the emotional spike, not emotional safety. They crave the high of validation, followed by the drop of being ignored again and again. It's not love, it's addiction. And here you are offering stability, offering peace, offering gold. But to someone raised in chaos, peace feels foreign, stability feels boring, and your presence feels too easy. But ask yourself this, if the world keeps misunderstanding your kindness, would you rather shrink to be accepted or stay whole and become unignorable? Let's be honest. You were conditioned to. You were taught to love harder, to prove your worth, to give until it hurts, and then to keep giving just to be seen. But here's the twist. The more you give to someone who hasn't earned it, the faster they begin to expect it. And what's expected stops being appreciated. That's why they lost interest. That's why they pulled away. Not because you weren't valuable, but because they got access without effort. This is not a personal failure. This is human nature. And long before Tinder ever existed, Machiavelli warned us, men value what they struggle to obtain and grow indifferent to what is too easily acquired. That one sentence explains half the heartbreak in modern relationships. So how do you change the game? Not with manipulation, not with coldness, but with awareness. You stop giving your presence away like a free sample. You stop begging to be seen. You stop handing your light to those who wear blindfolds. You don't hide your heart, but you require effort before access. You stop trying to be the most loving and start being the most discerning, because your energy, your presence, your peace aren't trash. They are sacred currencies, and they're not meant for people who only know how to spend, not build. And if this is hitting something deep in your chest, if you've ever felt like you were giving gold to people who only saw dust, then now is your shift. If you're wondering, if they don't value me, what will I have left for the one who truly does? They say love is a game, but most men keep playing it like a confession when in reality it's a battlefield. And in battle, certain mistakes don't just hurt, they cost you everything. The five silent killers of attraction. Here are the five silent killers of attraction every man must stop. Mistake number one: you over explain yourself. You think honesty means telling her everything why you didn't reply, what your weekend looked like, how you feel in perfect detail. But here's the bitter truth: over explaining is a subtle form of begging. It says, please don't misunderstand me, please like me, please stay. Machiavelli would laugh at this. The wise man does not explain, he acts and lets others interpret. Silence, when used well, is more seductive than 1,000 justifications. Ask yourself, are you sharing or are you seeking permission to exist? Mistake number two: you respond too quickly. You hear the ping, you drop everything, and suddenly you're available again, immediately. She texts at 11:37. You reply at 11:38. You call it being attentive. She reads it as emotional hunger. Men who respond instantly signal that they have nothing else demanding their time. In a world of distractions, attention is currency, and when it comes too easily, it becomes worthless. So the next time your phone vibrates, pause, breathe, make her wonder. Mistake number three: you compliment without tension. You're so beautiful, you're amazing, you're everything I've ever wanted. Words like honey dripping sweet predictably. But here's the twist: compliments without contrast are invisible. It's not the praise that ignites desire, it's the restraint behind it. It's when a confident man says less, but means more. Try this instead. You look dangerous tonight. Say it with a smirk. Let her feel the edge, because where there's no tension, there's no spark. Mistake number four: you reveal your intentions too soon. You're excited. You tell her you want something real. You lay your heart bare by the second coffee. But connection is not built that way. And women don't fall for declarations, they fall for discovery. Machiavelli's law: never reveal your entire plan. Leave them uncertain, let them wonder. When you tell her everything up front, you rob her of curiosity, mystery, and with it, attraction. So stop announcing, start unfolding. Mistake number five: you prioritize her over your mission. This is the most fatal one. You skip the gym, you reschedule your work, you cancel plans with friends just to see her. You think you're being romantic. She sees a man with no spine. A man who sacrifices his mission will never be trusted with hers. And women intuitively know this. She may smile, at first enjoy the attention, but slowly she will lose respect. Your purpose is your backbone. Your schedule is sacred. Your time is not a donation. So protect it or lose everything that matters. These are the five traps. Not because you're weak, but because you were never taught otherwise. But now you know. Now you see the battlefield. And if this part cut deep good, that sting you feel, that's clarity, that's growth. Next, we uncover the philosophy that Machiavelli himself would whisper not to manipulate women, but to free men, the life-changing philosophy. Let's move to the foundation. You've seen the patterns. You've felt the pain. But without a philosophy, you're just reacting, grasping, guessing. That's why most men fall apart after heartbreak. They were never taught how to think, only how to hope. But hope isn't a strategy. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He watched kings fall not from weakness, but from emotional blindness. They mistook loyalty for love, forgiveness for strategy, and sincerity for strength. They thought being good was enough, and they lost everything. He wrote, not for romantics, but for those who sought to understand power. Power not just in war, but in emotion, in presence, in influence, in love. Men are driven by two things. He said, fear and desire. And if you don't know how to command either, you'll be trapped by both. In today's world, that trap shows up like this. You fall for her beauty, you project meaning into her silence. You take her mixed signals as mystery. And instead of observing, you start interpreting. Instead of leading, you react. Every emotion becomes a leash. Every hope a rope you tie around your own neck. Let's be blunt. What if everything you thought was love was actually emotional submission? Machiavelli would say, a ruler who depends on the love of his people will be overthrown the moment that love fades. Now replace people with her. Do you see the danger? Love without strategy is slavery with perfume. This is not cynicism, it's clarity. He didn't teach men to be cold. He taught them to see clearly through the fog of desire, because the man who sees clearly can never be controlled. You want real connection. You want love that lasts. Then you must become sovereign first. A sovereign doesn't chase validation. He doesn't fear rejection. He doesn't try to impress. Why? Because he knows that attraction isn't based on how much you care. It's based on how grounded you are in your own value. Let me repeat that women don't fall for the most caring man. They fall for the man who doesn't need to be cared for because he cares for himself. That's what Machiavellian attraction is. It's not manipulation. It's magnetism born from clarity, control, restraint. It's the realization that you don't need to be loved to know you are worth loving. And once you embody that, you stop playing the emotional games. You stop being baited. You stop falling for potential. You stand still and watch the world orbit around you. This is the moment your power begins. When you stop trying to earn someone's heart and start building a world so magnetic, they ask to be part of it. From this place, everything changes, ready to step out of reaction and into command. The inner shift, from reaction to command. The man you've been is not broken. He's not weak. He's just operating on outdated instructions. He was raised to believe that effort equals affection. That if you just show up enough, stay loyal enough, give enough, eventually love will reward you. But the modern world doesn't work like that, and neither does attraction. You thought, if I care deeply, they'll care back. But what actually happened, they pulled away. Not because you lacked value, but because your value was never presented with boundaries. Let's be real. You could have been the perfect man. But if you gave away that perfection too early, you robbed it of meaning. So now the question isn't, how do I make them see my worth? It's how do I become a man who never has to prove it? That's the shift, and it begins in your mindset. Mindset 1, from pleasing to positioning. Instead of obsessing over whether she likes you, start building a life that makes her wonder how she fits into it. Take the athlete training alone in a quiet gym at 6:00 a.m. The writer pouring words onto the page long after everyone sleeps. The man learning a new language because one day he'll use it abroad. None of them are trying to impress. They're positioning. They're building gravitational pull. Machiavelli would say, "He who holds his ground makes others move." The point isn't arrogance, it's orientation. Stop orbiting. Start becoming the sun. Mindset 2, from emotion to observation. Remember the last time you sent that long paragraph? The midnight text, the apology, the "I just want to talk" message? Now pause. What actually changed? Did clarity appear? Did they suddenly respect you more? Or did you just feel emptier? Emotion led you there, but observation would have saved you. Imagine you're in a room watching a chess game. Do you rush to move a piece out of panic, or do you wait, study the opponent, and strike with intention? A sovereign man does the same with people. He listens to what's not said. He reads inconsistency like a warning sign. He doesn't guess, he decodes. He's not cold, he's calibrated. Mindset 3, from access to standard. You used to give your time to anyone who showed interest just because they smiled at you, because they were nice, because they said you were different. But now you think in terms of qualification. Just like a king doesn't let every traveler into the throne room, you don't hand your energy to every pretty face. You've stopped using chemistry as a compass. Now you look for alignment in values, behavior, and effort. Example: she cancels plans last minute twice. Old you, it's okay. She's busy. Let me reschedule. New you, if she can't respect time, she can't share mine. This isn't ego, it's standard. The shift is subtle but seismic. You don't text to check in, you text with purpose. You don't compliment to win favor, you compliment to reflect reality with restraint. You no longer give second chances to red flags wrapped in beauty. You see patterns faster. You walk away earlier. This is not bitterness. This is emotional intelligence. Because every time you gave your heart to someone who didn't earn it, you trained yourself to expect disappointment. But now you're retraining, rewiring. You don't avoid love. You refine your gateway to it. And here's the paradox: the moment you stop trying to be loved is the moment people start loving you for real. Because love doesn't come from sacrifice, it comes from self sovereignty. Let this sink in. If I respected myself as much as I admire her, what would I no longer tolerate? That single question is nuclear. It melts people pleasing. It shatters emotional dependency. It ends years of confusion masquerading as connection. Because now you no longer overgive. You no longer overshare. You no longer overstay. You observe first. You choose deliberately. You remain whole. This is not about becoming colder. It's about becoming wiser, about where warmth belongs. You're not heartless. You're heart trained. And in that discipline, you discover your unshakable self, the embodiment of sovereignty, making it real. You understand the philosophy. You've shifted your mindset. But if it stays in your head, it fades. Knowledge without embodiment is a promise you break to yourself. Now is the time to make it real, not through talking, but through how you walk, how you reply, how you live, and how you stay silent. When he controls the frame always, your schedule is the first sign of power. The average guy jumps at every ping. He explains delays, feels guilty for saying no. The sovereign man, he doesn't react. He's deliberate. A real life example. She texts, "Want to hang tonight at 8 or 0 p.m. You're reading or planning your next project. You see the message, smile, then finish your focus. The next morning you respond, was deep in a deadline. Let's look at the weekend. No apology, no guilt, no over explaining. Because you're not responding from need, you're responding from mission. 2. He moves slow and speaks slower. Ever seen a man walk into a coffee shop and instantly draw attention? He doesn't say a word. It's his eyes, his posture, the way he holds his cup. His presence is his introduction. While others rush to fill silence, he lets silence speak for him. You can train this. When you enter a room, slow your steps by 10%. When asked a question, pause 2 seconds before answering. You'll notice the energy in the room begins to orbit around you. 3. He reveals almost nothing. She asks, "So what are you looking for in a woman?" The old you would deliver a long monologue, smart, kind, ambitious, emotionally mature. But this time you look up, smile, and say, "I'll know it when I see it." Then ask her something more interesting. You're not hiding. You're protecting mystique. You understand that revealing less doesn't make you distant. It makes discovery feel earned because what's uncovered slowly feels like treasure. 4. He keeps building. She calls with spontaneous plans. But tonight is the night you work on your passion project, that vlog you've postponed, that new skill you promised you'd master. The old you cancels his plan. The new you replies, "Can't tonight, but I'll let you know this weekend." Then you follow through because you're not working to impress her. You're building something timeless, and that makes you more magnetic than any compliment ever could. 5. He is kind, but not accessible. You're still respectful, still warm, still grounded, but you're no longer wide open. You're like a beautifully lit cafe without the open 24/7 sign. Selective hours, VIP seating only. She feels it, not in your words, but in your tempo. You don't send good morning texts every day, not out of strategy, but because you don't give your rhythm away on autopilot. Not everyone deserves front row seats to your life. Every small choice like that is a declaration. No one hears you say, "I've changed." They feel it in how you text, how you pause between words, how you walk in without shrinking. That's the silent weight of a man who's centered. And if you're wondering, am I living this yet? Ask yourself, when I walk into a room, do people feel something shift? If not, you're still explaining too much, still seeking approval, with your tone still shrinking your gravity. Stop. You don't need to speak louder. You need to become quieter inside. Because in a world full of men trying to be loved, the man who doesn't chase becomes unforgettable. The new face of strength. Once upon a time, strength looked like dominance, loud, aggressive, controlling. But that model is extinct. It collapses under pressure. It screams when it's not seen. It needs to be feared because it fears itself. Today, true strength has a new face. It's the man who can sit in silence while others unravel. The man who can walk away from drama without needing the last word. The man who can feel pain and still hold his frame that's power. Not because it controls others, but because it doesn't need to. You see, a man ruled by emotion is a slave dressed in passion, but a man who masters emotion becomes the eye of the storm. Unshaken, unreachable. He doesn't flinch when tested. He doesn't beg to be kept. He doesn't collapse when misunderstood because he no longer lives for validation. He lives for alignment. In the past, you'd chase, you'd explain, you'd soften your edges for someone else's comfort. But now you let her wander, you let her wait, You let her earn proximity to your inner world because that world is sacred now. Not a playground for strangers, not a vending machine for affection. Strength isn't in how loud you speak, it's in how little you need to. It's not in how many women want you, it's in how little that need defines you. It's not in how fast you fall in love, it's in how slowly you give yourself. You've become deliberate, measured, dangerous in your stillness. Not violent, but valuable. Not arrogant, but untouchable. You've become the kind of man who makes the world slow down when he walks in. Not because he demands attention, but because he carries a different frequency. Women feel it. Friends respect it. Enemies fear it. Even silence recognizes it. Because real power doesn't chase noise, it becomes the gravity others orbit. And in the end, this is what she truly desires, even if she can't explain it. A man she cannot control, a man who won't lose himself for love, a man who makes her rise just to stand beside him. That's you now. The old you would have begged. The new you lets her wonder. The old you explained. The new you lets silence answer. The old you feared being alone. The new you walks alone with purpose. Because this is the new face of strength. A man who is no longer led by emotion, but by vision, by principle, by inner order. If you've made it this far, then something in you has already changed. You've stopped asking how to be wanted. You've started asking how to become undeniable. That shift is everything, because the moment a man stops seeking to be chosen, he becomes the one who chooses. And that's what she senses now. Not just your words, but your presence, your refusal to abandon yourself for affection, your quiet demand for respect without saying a word. You've learned the rules, you've felt the pain, but most of all, you've remembered your center. You are no longer the man who compromises to be liked. You are no longer the man who begs for attention. You are no longer the man who hides behind kindness. You are sovereign now, not because the world gave you permission, but because you took it back. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer explain, you embody. You no longer react, you lead. This isn't about women, it's about power. The power to own your energy, to build your kingdom, to walk away not out of spite, but because you simply know your worth.